Well, David, anything else we need to business we need to complete before we get to the post game?
Yeah, I think we should talk about this Assange briefly, because this is a very important story for folks. Everybody knows the name Julian Assange. But remember, when we're talking about this kind of journalism that The Intercept is doing in this case, these kind of things, this kind of brave journalism of exposing these secrets, of exposing these networks that have the ability to sweep these things under the rug, right? That's an incredible service to democracy. And I'm not even going to do the typical Assange disclaimers. At this point, people should know the way that the board is set. And what is going on against Julian Assange right now is a continuation of an attempt to stifle democracy and journalism. And it is certainly an attack on his basic human rights. The United States right now has been granted the ability to appeal a decision by the United Kingdom that found that if Assange was extradited to the United States, that his human rights would be under severe threat, right? And I want people to think about that for a moment too. What that says about the American justice system, that the little island of Boris Johnson folks are sitting here saying that him coming over here and facing criminal proceedings in the United States would threaten his very human rights. The Biden administration is trying to present a different story or painting to the United Kingdom, arguing that they would not hold Julian Assange in the most austere conditions that they have, which is just a disgusting admission in the first place of how our justice system works, and that they would even potentially consider allowing Assange to live out the length of his sentence in Australia. I'm going to tell you right now, that sentence would be a life sentence. They're going to throw, and they intend to throw everything that they can at Julian Assange. And let's also not forget that, as all these proceedings are going on, Assange has been held. This has been a long ongoing legal process against him that has stifled him, has shut him up, and has, and has confronted him with incredible. I mean, I can't even imagine the personal suffering of somebody like Julian Assange, to have both of these states, basically trying to come at him and throw the book at him with the full force that they have at their disposal. So note this, because these developments are really important. And Matt, if you have this story from Common Dreams, I wanted to note a couple of things, because as all of this is happening, we're finding out more and more and more about the facade that this case was built on. So Assange supporters demand release amid key DOJ witnesses admission testimony was fabricated, and it was written by Julia Conley in Common Dreams. I'm going to scroll down a little bit because the first bit is that, Assange's family and friends celebrated his 50th birthday outside of Belmarsh prison, where he's being, outside of Parliament. But he's being held in Belmarsh prison. If you scroll down a little bit, the rally came a week after a key witness in the United States government's case against Assange, Sigurdur Ingi Thordarson, apologies if I didn't get that right, admitted that his entire testimony is false in an article in the Icelandic news outlet Stundin. The article details how Thordarson, a convicted felon, this is, their stuff, pedophile and sociopath, used his position to steal money from WikiLeaks and received immunity from prosecution from the FBI in a quid pro quo, Fair reported, noting the new information received virtually no coverage from the corporate media. Jennifer Robinson, a legal advisor to Assange, appeared on Democracy Now! Earlier this week to discuss the development, calling Thordarson's admission just the latest revelation to demonstrate why the United States case should be dropped. And it certainly should. This is something that it's one of those stories that I know a lot of people on the left have sympathy with Assange, but it's one of those things where the slow drag of this story allows more and more egregious examples and subversion of justice to happen, right? Because it's easy to take your eye off the ball with the Assange trial at this point, because it's been going on for so long. But you should remind yourself, if you think it's been going on for a very long time, imagine what it's been like for him and his loved ones and his family. And also remember that this is a direct threat to democracy and justice in just the clearest sense. This is like a textbook case. This is the kind of story, if you wanted to write a story for a child to understand what government censorship looks like, what government's trying to intimidate journalists looks like, you would tell them this story.
Right. And can you just tell folks what was recanted, the nature of the information, just what specifically?
Yeah, so I believe what was recanted here was that this gentleman said that Assange gave him the order to hack MPs' computers. And what this person has now recanted is saying, oh, I did not get that order. And also, it appears, to my knowledge, that this person also recanted or basically contradicted themselves in how deep their relationship was with Assange and WikiLeaks itself, because I believe he was just a volunteer, right? Somebody who would be a very easy mark.
Let me just cut in and say, like, if he's a convicted pedophile, that seems like the type of person who is an intelligence asset and who, and yeah, like what was recanted and that, and the thing about Assange, like, the hacking charge versus like as a way to basically prosecute journalism, right? I don't care if Assange taught somebody like coding, like did an extensive, like to me, like this doesn't fucking matter. Like this ultimately, absolutely, the disclosure of information should be protected, 100%. And yeah, this way around it where it's the same thing as like mail fraud, right? Like if you use the mail to send like some information back in the day, if that's how they got. I don't even know.
For sure, wire fraud, yeah.
Right, like I wonder if that was even protected under the First Amendment. Like this is it. To be honest, this is like the same thing.
Oh, I mean, and this is classic American bullshit. I mean, this is exactly the same kind of thing that's happened with Leonard Peltier, where the FBI has come in and intimidated people and said, "Hey, you're going to say to the judge that you saw him doing this, this, and that you saw him wearing this, that you saw him with this kind of gun." Right? I mean, these are documented at this point. That the FBI was doing this against Leonard Peltier, and that's not the only example, just one that's coming to my head right now, right? Like this is a tactic that is used time and time again by the state to try to get their way in something that is supposedly supposed to be objective. We all know.
I mean, there's a gun planted on Red Fawn Phallus. Collins Catch the Bear's a name. I don't know that story off the top of my head, but I think another Fed informant type situation. Like this stuff, yeah, like it's the playbook, right? Like, and it never stopped. It's like what, yeah. I don't know what else to say.
And just as a cherry, it has to be stated again. Remember, what was exposed was not just gossip; it was legitimate war crimes committed by the United States in an imperialist war. And if you can't recognize that that is the focus and the reason that they are challenging Assange, if you are too fixated on, for example, the 2016 election, that you forget, they don't care about, like, maybe, Clinton, if she were to be president, might be really pissed off and want to be targeting Assange, right, for the email leaks, right? The reason the state is coming after Julian Assange, right, and which, again, I would defend him in that moment too, because that would equally be absurd. But the reason that the state is coming after Julian Assange is that he exposed imperialist war crimes and an American adventure in the Middle East, and they did not want that information to be public.
I mean, the WikiLeaks cable we had, cited at the top of the show about Haiti, but we're just going to have the ambassador on behalf of fucking Haynes. I mean, how a clear line can you draw, right? The U.S. ambassador like saying, hey, this minimum wage thing, no, because Haynes told me not to. Yeah. Or it's contractors, as like all the, maybe this is a disclaimer we should put in here too, because that's the one, like all the newspapers that cover it's like, it's the contractors that did this. Yeah. Okay.
Same.
Yeah. And also, another thing about like when like that, like we're forced exploitation in another country, right? It's not like the countries that didn't force that aren't benefiting, right? Like if Nike all of a sudden doesn't have to compete for the like non-Haitian product, that's a leveraging point. They can go to this way. Hey, you know how we both Haynes and we were competing for your inputs there, commodities. Well, now that they are going to Haiti to get that. So guess what happens to your price? Like, this is a basic sort of understanding that I think was maybe more common like when slavery existed, as a way to like do a cross like slaves, people that are enslaved, and also worker solidarity. But it's just like, it's an obvious thing. And this thing where it's like, no, it's not us, it's our contractors. Like, no, it's you and everyone else in your fucking industry.
No, exactly. And exposing that's important work. Anyway, solidarity with Assange and with journalists threatened by state abuse anywhere.